The year is 1928. A British colonial mining engineer named Bernard Fagg is standing on the Jos Plateau in central Nigeria. Tin miners have been pulling strange clay heads out of the ground for years, using them as scarecrows in their yam fields. Fagg picks one up. He's holding the face of a person who lived 1,000 years before Christ. Rewind 3,500 years. While the Egyptians are mummifying Tutankhamun, while the Olmecs are carving their colossal heads in Mexico, a sophisticated civilization is rising along the Niger and Benue River valleys. They settle across an area larger than Portugal, roughly 78,000 square kilometers stretching across what is now the Kaduna and Plateau states of Nigeria. This is around 1500 BCE. The Nok are farming pearl millet and cowpeas. They're hunting with iron-tipped spears. They're building terracotta kilns that reach temperatures of 1,200 degrees Celsius, the same temperature your modern pottery wheel struggles to hit. And here's what nobody talks about. The Nok existed before sub-Saharan Africa was supposed to have iron at all. According to the old colonial-era textbooks, iron metallurgy was something Africa learned from Phoenicians or Romans through North Africa. The Nok civilization detonated that entire theory. By 900 BCE, possibly as early as 1500 BCE, they were running iron smelting operations at a site called Taruga deep in the savannah, completely cut off from the Mediterranean world. They weren't catching up. They were ahead. Now here's the part that gets eerie. The Nok left behind thousands of terracotta sculptures, not pottery, not pots, sculptures. Life-sized human heads, full figures, animals, hybrid creatures. And every single face follows the same haunting design rule. The eyes are triangular, or D-shaped, or perfectly hollow circles. The pupils are deliberately pierced through the clay so light passes straight through the head. When archaeologists shine a torch behind a Nok sculpture, the eyes glow. The hairstyles are insanely elaborate. Braids stacked into towers, beaded crowns, buns shaped like crescent moons. One famous figure, the Gemma head discovered in 1944, has a hairstyle so detailed that modern Yoruba and Hausa hair braiding traditions still echo it 2,500 years later. But here's the surprising truth nobody mentions. These sculptures were not gravestones. They were not idols in temples. The Nok deliberately broke them. Almost every Nok terracotta ever found has been smashed, often into specific patterns, with pieces scattered across ritual sites. Archaeologist Peter Brunig's team at Goethe University spent years excavating sites like Pangweri and Janrua, and they kept finding the same thing. The heads were detached from the bodies on purpose, in what scholars now believe were funerary rituals or ancestor offerings. Imagine a culture that spent hundreds of hours sculpting a human likeness, fired it in a kiln hot enough to melt aluminum, and then ritually destroyed it. We have no idea why. Around 400 CE, something goes catastrophically wrong. The Nok don't just decline, they evaporate. The terracotta workshops fall silent, the iron furnaces cool, the villages along the Kaduna River are abandoned within a few generations. By 500 CE, the entire civilization that had thrived for nearly 2,000 years is gone, leaving nothing but broken sculptures and rusting iron slag. What killed the Nok? The leading theory is environmental collapse. Pollen samples and soil cores from the Jos Plateau show something disturbing. The Nok's intensive iron smelting required massive deforestation. To smelt 1 ton of iron, you need roughly 8 tons of charcoal. To make that charcoal, you have to burn down a small forest. For 1,500 years, the Nok were industrial-scale ironworkers. Slowly, the savanna woodlands they depended on disappeared. Crops failed, soil eroded. A drying climate finished the job, but there's a darker possibility. Recent excavations have uncovered evidence of social upheaval, settlements abandoned in haste, ritual sites desecrated, sculptures buried in panic rather than ceremony. Some scholars now suspect a violent collapse, possibly an invasion from neighboring groups attracted by Nok wealth and iron technology. And then there's the strangest clue of all. The sculptural style of the Nok doesn't entirely die. Centuries later, in the Yoruba kingdom of Ife, in the Ibo Ukwu bronzes, in the Benin Empire, you see echoes. The same triangular eyes, the same pierced pupils. As if the Nok civilization didn't disappear, it just scattered and seeded the great African kingdoms that came after. Here's what we actually know, and what we will never know. In the 1990s, the Nok civilization became the target of one of the largest archaeological looting crises in modern history. Tin mining had already disturbed thousands of sites, but when international collectors discovered Nok terracottas, prices exploded. A single intact head started selling on the black market for over $100,000. Looters tore through the Nigerian countryside. They didn't excavate. They blasted, dug, and destroyed. Estimates from UNESCO suggest that more than 90% of all Nok artifacts ever recovered have no archaeological context. We have the heads. We don't know which villages they came from, what they were buried with, or what they meant. In 2000, the Louvre purchased 3 Nok statues for nearly $400,000 from a Belgian dealer. The Nigerian government accused them of buying looted goods. After a diplomatic standoff, France agreed to a 25-year loan agreement, technically returning ownership to Nigeria while keeping them on display in Paris. What we do have, thanks to legitimate excavations, is staggering. At a site called Kush, archaeologists found a ritual complex with multiple sculpture deposits. At Taruga, they found 13 iron furnaces dating to the 5th century BCE. Carbon dating, thermoluminescence testing, and DNA analysis of organic residues have given us a skeleton of Nok history. But the soul of it, their language, their gods, their kings, their songs, is permanently lost, looted into private collections, smashed by miners, vanished into the soil. Why does a 3,000-year-old African civilization matter to your life today? Because the Nok are the proof that everything you were taught about the development of human technology is wrong. For 2 centuries, Western scholarship insisted that iron, art, and complex society spread outward from a few cradles of civilization: Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China. Africa south of the Sahara was framed as a passive recipient, a place where civilization arrived, never originated. The Nok obliterate that narrative. They invented iron metallurgy independently. They developed monumental art. They sustained a complex society for 1,500 years, longer than the Roman Empire lasted. The modern parallel is uncomfortable. Right now, we are watching another civilization, our own, strip its environment for industrial output. The Nok burned their forests for iron. We're burning our atmosphere for energy. They didn't see the collapse coming until it was already happening. They were the most technologically advanced people in their world, right up until the moment they weren't. There's also a quieter lesson. The Nok left no writing, no inscriptions, no king lists, and because they left no words, we erased them. Civilizations that don't document themselves get edited out of history. In a world where digital records can vanish in a server crash, where entire languages die every 2 weeks, the Nok are a warning about who gets remembered and who gets forgotten. CTA, 30 seconds. If a 3,000-year-old African civilization that mastered iron before Rome existed can almost vanish from history, imagine how many other stories are still buried out there. This channel exists to dig them up. Every week, we uncover a forgotten empire, a hidden mystery, a piece of history the textbooks left out. Subscribe now because the next video is about a civilization even older than the Nok, and you've definitely never heard of them. Outro, 30-45 seconds. One final revelation. In 2017, archaeologists at the University of Frankfurt analyzed soot residue from inside a Nok terracotta head. They found traces of palm oil, animal fat, and burned plant matter. The conclusion: these weren't just sculptures, they were lamps, vessels. The Nok lit fires inside the heads of their ancestors and let the light shine out through those triangular eyes. For 1,500 years in the dark savanna of central Nigeria, the dead literally watched over the living. Every face in the dirt was aflame. And then the flames went out, the kilns cooled, and the world forgot. But the heads are still there, still staring, still waiting for someone to remember their name.